Today, Teacher's Corner, we're going to take a look at some questions that you're going to need for your Pennsylvania Keystone test. So we're just going to take some quick reminders. Okay, so looking at the first question, we have an absolute value equation, right? There's an equal sign. So we want to make sure we split this and then into two equations. The first one is the same exact equation without the absolute value bars. The second one, we just changed that positive 8 to negative 8. So I'm going to solve this. I have 2x is equal to 12, so x is equal to 6. Do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to add that 4 to both sides, and I have 2x is equal to negative 4. Divide both sides by 2, and x is equal to negative 2. So there's our two answers right there. Now, what happens when we have an absolute value inequality? So if we have a greater or greater than or equal to, we say it's greater. So that's how we know we're going to stick an or in between. In the second problem, we have a less than or less than. So that's how we know we're going to put an and between the two inequalities. So similar to the equation, the first one is exactly the same. The first inequality is exactly the same. The second inequality, we're going to change the direction of the sign, and then we're going to add that negative. So this gives me 2x is greater than 12, x is greater than 6. That's going to give me an or. Same thing for the other side. Add the 4 to both sides, divide by 2. So I have 2x is less than negative 2. Oops, sorry. X is less than negative 2. Okay, so now we're just going to graph that. So I have an open circle to the right for x is greater than 6, and an open circle to the left for x is less than negative 2. Okay, and the next problem, again, same thing, except for I'm going to have the word and in between. So I have 2x is less than or equal to 12, x is less than or equal to 6, and I have 2x is greater than negative 4, divide both sides by 2, and I have x is less than or equal to negative 2. Now, I'm not done here. I have to put them together. So I'm going to put my x in the center because it's and. On the number line, my 6 is to the right of negative 2. So my negative 2, I'm going to put over here to the left. In this relationship here, I'm pointing to the x. And this relationship here, I'm pointing to the negative 2. And both my arrows are pointing left, which is what I want. Okay, when I graph it, I have a closed circle above negative 2, a closed circle above 6, and that barbell in between because I'm including all of those. All right, let's take a look at some probability. So it says you choose a marble at random from a bag containing 4 blue marbles, 3 red marbles, and 2 green. So there's a total of 9. Once you pick the marble, you replace it and choose again. So the first one, there's out of 9 marbles. I want to pick a red one, which is 3 over 9. Now I'm going to multiply them. I'm going to pick another marble. Now again, I put it back. So I'm back in the bag. I'm back where I started. There's 9 marbles total, and there's still 3 in there that are red. So I multiply that across. I let my calculator simplify it for me, and I get 1/9. Okay. The next one is 1 red and then 1 blue. So again, I'm going to start with 3 over 9. I put it back. So I'm back to 9 marbles, and this time there's 4 blue. So that's going to give me 12 over 81, which I can simplify to 4 over 27. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one. So this time I have 3 blue, 5 red, and 2 green. So I have 10 marbles to hold. This time, once you pick it, I do not replace it. So I basically say I'm holding in my hand. So I have add a 10. First, I do my red marbles. There are 5 red marbles. So 5 out of 10. Now, when you don't replace it, you assume what you want is what you have in your hand. So I'm down to 9 marbles because I picked one and it's still in my hand. And of those, 4 of them are now red. Okay, I already have one in my hand. So I'm going to simplify this, and I get 20 over 90, which again will simplify to 2 over 9. Okay, same idea. I have red. I have 5 out of the 10 red marbles are red. I'm going to hold on to it, so it means there's only 9 in the bag. Okay, there's 3 marbles left. So that gives me, I'm going to simplify this. 5 goes into 5 once and into 10 twice. So it's going to give me, same thing here. I'm going to end up with 1 over 6. Okay, and there you go. All right, let's take a look at the next problem. Now, again, this prism is on your formula sheet, this formula. So we know we're going to have one. So what's the volume? Remember, we're going to multiply the 3. I like to put that monomial up front just because then I can use FOIL on the other. So that gives me 2x squared. My outside is 2x, my inside is negative 2x, and my last is negative 2. This is going to zero out, just works out that way. So I have 2x squared minus 2. I distribute that x, and I have 2x to the third minus 2x, and that's going to be units cubed. Okay, now what happens if the volume is 2? So what I could do is I could take this 2 and substitute it in there. That's one way to do it. Now this one isn't so bad. The other way, you could just go back to my original problem. So I have 2 minus 1. That would make that side worth 1. And over here, it would be 2. And then up here, 2 times 2 is 4 plus 2 is 6. So my volume is equal to length times width times height. I could just multiply those together. And I have 2 times 6, which gives me 12. And again, that would be 12 units cubed. Okay, what happens to the volume of the original figure when each side is tripled? So we've talked about this. So if I just went and I multiplied every side by 3, so 3 times 1 gives me 3, 3 times 2 gives me 6, 3 times 6 gives me 18. And I multiply that, 3 times 6 times 18. That's going to give me 324. Now, it's not saying what is the volume, it's saying what happened to it. So I'm going to compare that to the original volume. 324 divided by 12 gives me 27. So we know that the volume is 27 times higher. Okay, now that's also 3 length times width times height because I tripled it. Okay, which is going to give you 27 times higher or bigger, however you want to say it. Okay, let's say bigger. All right, next one. Lower quartile. Right, so if we're talking about lower quartile, we know we're talking about all the different information we did on box and whisker. So the first thing I need to do is I need to put the numbers in order from left to right. From here, I have 8 numbers, so I want to make sure when I put them in order, I have 8 numbers. Now, in order to find the lower quartile, I need to find the median first. Median's always first, which is going to be right there. That's 5.5. So I'm going to go in the middle of that is going to be 3.5, and even if I want to do my upper quartile, that's going to give me 7.5. Okay. Now it says what percent of the scores are greater than 3.5. So let's just talk about this box and whisker while we have it. This one here, that's my lowest number. That's called the lower extreme. My upper number is called 11, which is called my upper extreme. My median I know is 5.5 here. My lower quartile is 3.5. My upper quartile is 7.5. Now remember, box and whiskers, everything is by 25%. So my median's in the middle, so that means there's 25% and 25% above it, 50% total, and the same thing in the other direction. So it's all about multiples of 25. So it says what percent of the scores are greater than 33.5? That would be from here over. That's going to be 75%. Okay. Now what about between 3.5 and 7.5? Remember what that is? That's my interquartile range. Again, that's 50% right in the center. All right, let's take a look at our stem and leaf. So it says here the stem and leaf plot shows the length and minutes of each movie playing at the local movie theater. They do have a key. Usually it is the tens and the ones digit unless they show you if there happens to be a decimal. Now I notice I could count them up and I could find my highest minus my lowest to find my range. But if they're asking, I notice this lower quartile, median, upper quartile, interquartile range. This is where they're mixing in the box and whisker. So instead of trying to count within these, I'm just going to try to go from one end to the other. I just took the time, and I want you to do this on test day. Just write them all out in order. It's just going to make your life a lot easier. Okay, so there's 16 numbers. I make sure I have 16 there. So the first thing I have to do is decide what my median is. My median is there, and that's going to give me 113.5. Now, when I find the middle of my lower values, right, I look from here to the left, that's going to be 98. The middle of my upper values, which is going to be here, is right here, and that's going to be 119. Okay, so let's see what it says. The lower quartile is 97. That's false, right? That one's not true. My lower quartile is 98. The median is 113. Well, it's 113.5, so that's close, but not exactly. The upper quartile is 119. That looks like that's true, but let's just double check. The interquartile range, 119 minus 98. That's going to be 21, right? I take my third quartile or my upper quartile minus my lower quartile and I get 21. So this is not going to be correct. So it's going to be, that's false. It's going to be letter C. All right, moving right along. Oop, let's go do one down here. Okay, it says Carrie's fourth marking period's test scores are given. Okay, find the mean, median, and mode. All right, so I put them in order. The mean is my average. So I actually, I added them all up and I divided by the number of scores there were, which is 6. So that's going to give me 86.7. And then my median is a middle number. So it's going to be kind of in between there, which is going to be 86. And my mode is the one that's the most often. 84 is there twice. So there's my mode. What must Carrie score in the next test to have an 88% average? So if she has one more test, I said I already had 6 tests, so I'm going to have 7 tests. And I'm going to multiply that by 88. That would be the total number of points she needs. Now, back here we found she has 520 already, right? So I'm going to subtract that 520. That's what she has on the first 6. I subtract that and I get a 96. So that's what Carrie needs on her next test to have an 88% average. Okay, and the last question is, imagine you're starting a small side hustle, the Glow Up Candle Company. You've realized that your total production cost is a combination of a fixed startup fee, like running the workplace, plus a consistent score for each candle you pour. You didn't track the starting cost, but you recorded your total expenses at 2 different points during your first month. Okay, so here's a table, right? We have a table of values. I have an X and a Y. The number of candles is going to decide on how much things are going to cost. Okay, so when I have it like that, remember this is like 2 points in time. So I have 15, 25, and 40, and 250. Okay, so it says write an equation line in slope-intercept form for this scenario above. So I have on my formula sheet, the first thing I'm going to do is going to find my slope. So my slope is going to be 250 minus 125 all over 40 minus 15. So that gives me 125 over 25. So my slope is equal to 5. Now, neither of these points are my y-intercept, so I'm going to have to use point slope to get to my equation. So I'm going to use this first one. So I have y minus 125 is equal to the slope, which is 5 times x minus 15. So I have y minus 125 is equal to 5x minus 75. I add 125 to both sides, and I have y is equal to 5x plus 50. So that's my equation of the line. Okay, what would the total cost be if you sold 65 candles? Well, if we notice my candles, that's my x value. So I'm going to substitute that in to the equation above, right here. Substitute that 65 in and add that up. I can use my calculator for that. And I have $375 for 65 candles. Now I always like to say, does that look reasonable? I want to go back to my table. I'm like, yeah, that looks pretty reasonable. If 40 was 250, 65 candles for 375 seems pretty good. It's not $3,000. It's not a negative number. So that seems pretty reasonable. Thanks so much for stopping by today. Have a great day and good luck on that Keystone test.